the minimum flows and levels. I don't believe I need to, Robert, any comments other than item number 58 is the Sarasota Estuary, and Jeanette Seacrest is going to do that for us, and you're up.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chair and members of the board. Jeanette Seacrest, the Bureau Chief of the Natural Systems and Restoration Bureau. And I'll be presenting, and we'll have a discussion on regarding the Sarasota Bay Estuary Program funding. This is an action item, so I will be, at the end of my presentation, asking for your approval for staff recommendations. This was added to the agenda. The recap is at your places and was posted on the district website yesterday. The reason why this was added last minute is we were waiting to see how what the policy board at their meeting last week, the Estuary Programs Policy Board meeting, to see what action they might take. In addition, there's contractual requirements with our interlocal agreement, and that's why we're presenting this today. Very briefly, the Sarasota Bay Estuary Program was established in 1989. The district has been a participant since its inception. In 2004, the district entered into an interlocal agreement with Sarasota and Manatee counties, the City of Bradenton, City of Sarasota, Town of Longboat Key, and the Florida Department of Environmental Protection. The interlocal agreement allowed the program to become an independent special district of the state, therefore no longer requiring a local host. The district's funding obligation to the interlocal agreement is $133,000 per year. In addition, the Estuary program periodically requests project funding through the district's cooperative funding initiative, and those are for restoration and water quality improvement projects. Over the past year, there have been several administrative issues that have arisen at the Sarasota Bay Estuary program that have not been resolved in a transparent manner. The first one regarding management issues included employee who had allegations and that were submitted to the program, and the Estuary program executive director hired an outside labor attorney to do an investigation. That report of the investigation is included as an exhibit to the recap at your places. That report concluded that there appeared to be no violation of employment law. However, the report did identify significant issues within the organization. And on the last page of that report, I will read something from the recommendation. The attorney stated that the level of distrust and miscommunication within the office appears to be abnormal. Inappropriate behaviors have been allowed to continue without repercussions, and the attorney concluded that the only way to improve the environment would be to implement substantial changes within the organization. An additional concern regarding this was the policy board. The majority of the policy board members first heard of the allegations and the investigation at their February 6th policy board meeting, when the employee who had submitted the allegations stood up at the end of the meeting and informed the policy board members. The policy board members then did ask for the investigation to be provided to them and an opportunity to meet with that attorney to discuss the investigation. District staff has had issues with financial practices. This past spring, district management identified that the Estuary program overbilled the district. This was immediately brought to the attention of executive and our Office of General Counsel, as well as to the Estuary program executive director. The executive director asked if there were options to reconcile that without having a reimbursement back to the district. Several options were presented. None were in compliance with our agreement, and we subsequently submitted an invoice to the Estuary program requesting reimbursement so that we are again in compliance with our agreement. At last week's policy board meeting, the board did unanimously approve reimbursing the district for the amount that was overpaid, and that hope to see a check soon from the program. Check's in the mail. In addition, at the May 8th policy board meeting, Mr. Moran, our Governing Board Policy Board representative for the program identified that the legal expenses incurred for the investigation were billed to a grant writing line item in the project budget, and brought that to their attention, and it has since been moved at the Policy Board's direction. There's been also concern regarding the disregard to Policy Board direction. At the May 8th Policy Board meeting, the Executive Director performance evaluation process was discussed. It was agreed upon that the performance evaluations would be provided to the Estuary Program's Administrative Assistant, who would then forward them to the Policy Board Chair. That process was not followed. Instead, the evaluations were forwarded to another Policy Board member. She, in turn, was not comfortable receiving those and returned them back to the Executive Director, who then compiled them and then forwarded them to the EPA. The EPA then forwarded them to the Policy Board Chair. The Policy Board Chair did request to have a special meeting to discuss the performance evaluations, a special Policy Board meeting. The Executive Director told him that it was not possible, apparently due to scheduling. The Policy Board Chair did meet with the Executive Director to go over the performance appraisal. The performance appraisal, it had, in 3 categories, had less than average reviews, and that included leadership, management, and organizational awareness. The Policy Board Chair asked the Executive Director to develop actions to improve in those categories and to present those at the September Policy Board meeting. When asked at last week's meeting, the Executive Director stated the actions that he took are a 60% change in the staffing of the organization, and that he was terminating the marketing firm and doing the work in-house. He did not have specific actions addressing leadership, management, and organizational awareness. As you may recall, we had several of these have been discussed at a prior governing board meeting, and the board approved contributing $15,000 towards an independent third-party review of the program at your April meeting. No action has been taken by the policy board at either their May 8th or September 25th meetings to perform a third-party review. They were presented that offer. They are planning to meet within the next 30 days to continue the discussion of the performance evaluation as well as the district's concerns. Per the interlocal agreement, the district is required, has an obligation to provide funding for fiscal year 2016. In order to end the district's funding obligation for fiscal year 2017, we would need to provide our notice of intent to withdraw from the interlocal agreement to each party no later than tomorrow. The district could rescind our termination within 180 days and remain a party to the interlocal agreement if significant improvements were made to the program. It's hard to determine if the issues with transparency and the issues that I've brought up are poor management, or potentially intentional. And because of that, staff is recommending an operational compliance audit to assess these ongoing issues. This could be performed by an independent third party or the district's inspector general. This audit would need to be completed by the Estuary program within 90 days, which is from October 1st, which is December 30th. The Estuary program would need to implement the processes to address the identified issues within 90 days from the audit, at the latest by March 29th, 2016. And if the governing board approved allowing the $15,000 from the district to be matched by $15,000 from the Estuary program, that could go towards the audit. And I'd like to finish with staff recommendations. These are as they are listed in the recap. And the first one is to approve terminating the district's participation from the Estuary program's interlocal agreement. Authorize staff to provide the Sarasota Bay Estuary Program members notice of the district's intent to withdraw unless ongoing management issues within the Sarasota Bay Estuary Program are addressed in accordance with governing board direction. And to reaffirm $15,000 to be matched by Sarasota Bay Estuary Program for an operational and compliance audit of the Sarasota Bay Estuary Program to be conducted by an independent third party or the district's inspector general. And that concludes my presentation.
Sure, we'll have a lot of questions and comments. Since he is on the board, I'd like to ask Michael if he would give us his comments first, if you don't mind.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chair. First, Chairman Babb, I appreciate you taking time and energy to put the letter together to send over to the chair of the policy board. And I can't stress enough how much I appreciate staff's attention to this. It's my understanding in the next, as Ms. Seacrest mentioned, the next 30 days, they're going to expedite a meeting for us to get together again on this matter. But what is very, very important to me with all of this communication, I just want to make sure that we send a very loud message to the Sarasota Bay Estuary and their dedicated supporters that the SWFWMD supports their mission very much and very much wants to be a partner in continuing to support their mission. The concerns that we're having, as outlined here, are very centric around some systems and procedures and possibly personnel there. But at the end of the day, again, I want a loud message coming back from this board. With your blessing, I'll take it forward that we are still very much in support of the Sarasota Bay Estuary Program. With that said, also, with a regaining of confidence in what's going on there, that we would rescind these discussions that are before us today and move forward with support and financial support and otherwise if we can get this back on track. But as we sit today as a representative of the taxpayer here, I can't in good faith tell this board that we should move forward with any type of funding until we get a better understanding of what's going on over there.
So you support the staff recommendations, the 3 bullet points on the screen?
I would be happy to move forward with a motion if you'd like to wait and have comment from others, but
we can discuss the motion, have comments on the discussion of motion if you want to make that motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we move forward with staff recommendations as presented.
Second.
Motion and a second. Further discussion and comments? Let's just start and come, we'll go this ladies first.
Yeah.
Does the management, changes in management, would that include more transparent financial dealings? Because I think that's one of my concerns. I've, heard rumors of slush funds and all kinds of
Mr. Chairman.
funky financial things going on. So I have a problem with giving them money if we're not sure that they're spending it appropriately and keeping track so that we aren't embarrassed by anything. Now, I know EPA does an audit every 3 years. When was their last EPA audit?
The EPA does perform a financial audit. It does not go into the policies, procedures, and bylaws of the program. It does not do an audit of any type of organizational or staff management. But
Right,
it
but
does.
as far
it is
as
financial.
their financial,
Yes.
are they getting a clean bill of health from
They have been
EPA?
getting clean audits.
And in discussions with the our inspector general, so that we wrote this recommendation appropriately, the operational compliance audit would allow us to look not only at their financials, but their policies and procedures.
Mr. Chairman, I want to be very careful that there's no conclusions made here today or assumptions in any way, especially towards management of the Sarasota Bay Estuary Program. I'm here before you, and I believe staff as well, as we honestly just don't know what's going on over there. And that's why a third-party review, I think, is very important before any conclusions are made. So this is simply a third party coming in to try and figure out what's going on.
I wasn't intimating that we
Sure,
knew
I
anything.
understand.
Understood.
But I want to know what is going on so we can tell whether, so I'm in favor of the third-party agreement.
And if these recommendations are carried out, then we'll find out what's going on.
Can we clarify? I mean, it says either or, and I'm wondering whether Kurt has the capacity or why we gave 2 potential solutions: third party costing $30,000 or us.
I wanted clarification. My understanding was that we would give the $15,000 if they would match it, and they would hire their own auditor. if they did not want to do that, that we would provide Kurt to do the entire audit. Is that correct? Okay, so
Yes, sir.
Have capacity, so we just go straight to the horse?
Good afternoon. For the record, my name is Kurt Fritsch. I currently serve as the district's Inspector General. Our audit plan would be coming in front of the board in October. So if you approve this motion, then I will design the audit plan to include hours to do this project. I would have to come back to the board and amend the audit plan should Sarasota Bay Estuary program choose to go with a third party.
Do you have any idea how long this might take you and how much staff time?
I have read the policies and procedures, and I've looked at the financial statements. I don't know the detail of all the expenditures, so I can't answer that question at this time. But my estimate would be it'd probably be 3 weeks of field time.
that was 3 weeks of field time.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
That answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Yes.
I think these recommendations are very appropriate, and I support them. I would like to see a timeline attached to the operational compliance audit that's reasonable, and know when we will get a report back.
That's item number 3, the timeline of, would it be appropriate, to have a suggestion, a number of days?
Well, if he said 3 weeks in the field, another week to document, I think if you said within 45 days.
45 days would cover it. So to item number 3, under staff recommendations, we'd put a time limit of 45
Wait a minute,
days.
I lost some smiles from Kurt. I guess we should say 60 days. In case they go third party, it'll take a week to negotiate that anyway. 60 days.
We'll give him some breathing room. We don't want him to lose the rest of his hair.
Chairman, just a suggestion, would you like me to amend the motion for 60 days from the time that the policy board of the Sarasota Bay Estuary would approve such an audit?
Before you do it, do you mind going back to the
Saying
other
that
slide?
they need to
Actually,
approve it. If they don't do the audit, then are we saying we will do the audit? Since we have money involved, I think we have the right to do the audit and ask Kurt to do it.
Are they going to pay for half the audit? We don't know.
No.
But they just put it off to,
If they do pay their $15,000 and use our $15,000 and hire an outside firm, yes, but if they don't, and we ask for the audit and ask Kurt to go down and do the audit for us, then we pay for the whole thing, and that's where we put the 60 days of limit on. And legal, Karen?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I think you might be able to address this. They're on a pretty tight timeline, as are we, because we only have 180 days to conclude all of this. Is I would keep the timeline as staff has originally recommended it, and authorize staff to make minor adjustments to that timeline as may be necessary, as long as we are back here with the board before our time expires to either rescind or confirm the fact that we're withdrawing from the program.
So on the slide that's in front of us, the audit and the timelines on there, is your suggestion that we maintain those?
Staff to make any adjustments as long as we are back here before the 180 days expires.
Okay. Do we have the wording now? Is everybody comfortable with that? That is the intention, spirit, and intent of the motion as presented to accept staff's recommendation, and with the understanding that this audit timeline as presented will be maintained. George first, and we're moving this way. Come on.
okay.
now.
This isn't, this is just kind of a human event way some people think that they could put that off, keep from spending their $15,000 knowing that we're going to go ahead and do the audit. Should we have something in there that says, can we bill them for a portion of that audit if they don't come up within the timeline to get their half?
What caused them
Well, I'm not sure we can for the $133,000 that's already in the budget we will approve later at our public hearing, because that's already in there according to the contract and agreement that we have. If we don't notify them that we are not doing that 133,000 any further. If we don't do that by tomorrow, then
Well, that's
we're obligated for another 133.
Okay, that's our only option.
Whether we could deduct it out of that, I don't know. We could ask somebody on that, but the answer is no, I would imagine on the 133. Madam Counsel?
Yeah, well, the provisions in the interlocal agreement require a 180-day notice to withdraw and then an additional 180 days of funding, or until the next fiscal year, whichever happens to be longer. So we're right at the timeline. If the board does not want to commit to FY16-17 funds, we have to give them the 180-day notice right now, and then the 180 days of additional funding obligation will run as soon as that stops, and we're right up against the next fiscal year. So we're not obligated after this fiscal year.
Do you have a comment?
No, that.
I have a question.
Mr. Adams? I'll be back.
Mr. Moran, thank you for bringing this to us. Thank you for your time on it. The mission is extremely important. It's timely on Tampa Bay Water being here. When I first came on the board, we had some misunderstandings of what being a partner meant. Whether it's the executive director, whether it's the board, whether it's whatever it is down there, I find it disgusting that we're having this discussion, whether it's purposeful or whether it's by mistake, that it's unacceptable. Stewardship of tax dollars, we have responsibilities in addition to the tax dollars, a partner. We need to be involved with good partnership. And that means helping them out. That means working with them. It's not running to Karen all the time saying, what can we legally do or not? It's doing what's right. And when we brought up an audit from the information you provided to us, I took it very serious. If I was them, I would have taken it extremely serious that somebody that's a partner with ours is raising these issues. And then on top of it, we go ahead and committed money to it. That's spending more money. I'll let Randy talk about spending money
I'm coming.
here. I know you are. That's why I made sure I got in before you. We even committed money. We didn't just say, we weren't micromanaging. We didn't say, here, you go do this, and we think you should do it this way, and this way, and not put any funding towards it. A partnership to me, if we raised an issue, concerns, or questions, whether there's any great explanation for it, misunderstanding, whatever reason, if I was them, I would have sat there and said, hey, I need to get with these people. I need to get with the district and make it right. You know, do I expect a phone call? I tell you what, I'm sitting here calling it disgusting, their activities, and I know they got good people like you on that board, and they've done a lot of good, and instead we very serious questions get raised a few months back, and the response in modern terminology has been crickets. They've snubbed their nose at us, they've done nothing, they've postponed a couple times now out. And that to me is just unacceptable. And while the mission is important, the mission needs to be accomplished. And for us to be a partner in that mission, things need to be done correctly. And right now, I can't sit there and say something's not being done right, but when the question's out there, they need to be able to show us that it's being done right, and it hasn't been. So as to your question of support for the mission, absolutely. As for things going forward as they have, absolutely not. Thank you.
And keep in mind the audit that she referred to, that page, last page, is an audit that they hired and asked for, and they got the words that I don't think they wanted to hear. But out of respect for this board, I agree with you. They should have responded or come here to either apologize or correct or whatever. coming on around. Mr. Babb, did you have,
No, I'm good, I'm ready.
you're up, Randy. You got a time limit?
No, I'm gonna echo Mr. Adams, I'm gonna make mine to the point. I don't think we should even be doing this at all. What is the point of the audit? We're gonna find out something, then what? The second thing is, when you read this, we shouldn't even be hearing this. I agree with you. This is kids. That's why we're in the project business, not running a company. We give money, now we're employers. We shouldn't even be doing this. This shouldn't even be on our radar. I don't have a problem supporting their projects, but we should never give when we have to give, and we're involved in employment issues. I mean, read this. This is like we're back in high school. And we're spending taxpayers' money for this? Nah, I'm against the whole thing. I think you cut all the funding off and you just do funding with them. They want to do a project, that's what we do. We're in the project business. We're not into funding a source so they can hire people. That's not our job. And when we do, this is what happens. Or if we decide to do that, then cut it where we're not the main provider here. Let somebody else jump up and take that role. I'm against the whole thing. I don't know why we're going to spend $15,000, or Kurt's going to spend all of his time, and then what are we going to do? Well, we're going to find out they owe us money we're not going to get back? Or we're going to say, okay, we're going to cut it from your funding? Wash our hands of this thing and go on. I'm not for any of it. I'm against it.
Wendy?
First of all, I guess I'll address Randy. I don't think we can be accusing people of things that we don't know whether they're correct or not. So I would like to see some verification that they're, we have this. I don't really even know who the person is that did it, but they didn't really address financially how they're dealing with things. I know just working with the Tampa Bay Estuary program, everything is by the letter, and there's never a worry. Everything is always out in front. We can ask any question. We can see the information on a quarterly basis. I would like to know that something similar is happening there. My other concern is with Mr. Frisch. If we're going to go ahead and do this, we say the audit is to be completed within 90 days. But we don't say when they have to notify us which direction they want to go in. And I want to make sure that Mr. Frisch's group has sufficient time to mobilize. So I didn't know if we would like, it has to be completed within 90 days, but they need to notify us if they're taking that responsibility before the 90 days so that we have as much mobility or mobilization time as possible.
Was there another question on my right? Anyone else?
No, I just had to say one thing for Wendy. In the notice letter that we have prepared to send to the parties pursuant to the interlocal agreement, we do say that they have to provide us notice within that first 30 days, whether they opt for the independent review or use our Inspector General.
Okay, well then that addresses, as long as Mr. Frisch is happy with that, I'm happy with
Keep
that.
in mind, we have a precedent where we work with the Tampa Bay Estuary and probably other estuaries, and we don't have this problem. Randy, you're right. It's in the personnel management kind of thing, but I think we do need audit and some proof before we withdraw totally. Whatever notice we send about the action, we can certainly complement the mission and purpose of an estuary board, because I think we all support estuary boards and their function. But we need to deal with just the operational and the audit and get the information as quickly as we can. You want to put that screen back up, the 3 points? This is the motion, and we will follow the guidelines of the audit as according to these 3 staff recommendations. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the question on the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay.
Nay.
The ayes have it, the motion carries whatever it is to 1. But we're still in agreement with you. You're the one.
Randy knows how it feels to be the one.
The other reporting files we've covered in routine reports, seeing no further issues. Sorry for such a long Resource Management Committee. Apologize.